Change is hard, not because you're doing it wrong, but because it asks something of you. Welcome to Change is Hard, a podcast from the Leadership Lab. I'm Audrey Blair, and this is a space for leaders who are learning how to sit with uncertainty, make decisions without rushing, and grow without losing themselves in the process. We'll talk about the moments that stretch you, the conversations you keep avoiding, and the quiet shifts that change everything. No noise, no pressure, just honest conversations about becoming the kind of leader and human you actually want to be. Let's get into it. You know, we love to say that knowledge is power. You've heard the phrase, you've probably said the phrase, I've heard it, I've said it. And then I read something, and I apologize, I probably should have looked up the reference before I hit record, but I read it somewhere and it said knowledge is not power, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, what do they mean? And I continue reading on. And it goes on to talk about how knowledge is only potential power. Now, I understand why we say it. Knowledge absolutely matters. It's the beginning of lots of things. Information matters. Learning matters. But I do want to challenge the notion that knowledge by itself is power. Because I don't know and I don't believe that it is. And I've spent some time putting it to test. And I talk about it with clients. I've probably said it in other podcasts and in other ways. So I want to dig into it just a little bit more. Knowledge is potential. It's possibility. It's something that you can hold in your hand. It's something that you can use just in case, but it's also something that you can hold and do absolutely nothing with it. There's probably lots of knowledge that you have that you don't act on, that you don't do anything with. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm talking about is when we have knowledge that we know that we can and should be using to get us to where we want to go. Now, power comes when knowledge meets experience, when it meets practice, when you get your reps in. It's when knowledge meets the moment where you actually have to do something. And the power lies in learning about who you are when you meet that moment. And there's something that's very powerful about that. You get to learn something about yourself. Because reading about boundaries is not the same as setting a boundary and following through. Reading about confidence is not the same thing as speaking up when you said you were going to speak up, whether it's in a meeting or talking to your boss or talking to someone that you need to give feedback to. Reading about leadership is not the same thing as sitting across from someone on your team and having a conversation with them that might be challenging. That is where the power is. Now, one of the things that I notice, both in my clients and with myself as well, I'm also putting myself in this, is when something feels unclear or uncomfortable, sometimes the first instinct is often to go gather more information. And clients might ask, do you have a book I should read? Or is there a podcast episode that I should listen to or another resource that I can use for that? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes there is a specific skill gap that we know and have identified, and we go, let's go learn about that thing and then come back and let's put it into practice. Sometimes there's a concept that you don't understand yet, and it makes sense for you to get an understanding of the concept. Other times there's a framework that might help you in a situation that you're in that you can put into practice to see things more clearly. But sometimes you are not looking for knowledge. Sometimes you're looking for relief, or you're looking for something that will make the discomfort go away before you have to act. And you wait for that discomfort to go away. And I'll give you the punchline here. It hardly ever just goes away. Therefore, often you don't act on that thing. Sometimes you're hoping that if you learn enough, the next step will feel easy. And that's not always the case as well. And that's where you tend to get stuck, because some things do not come clear before you move. It's not until after you move that it becomes a little bit more clear because you are learning something in the moment. You're learning how you handle that discomfort, and you're learning what are the things that get in the way so that the next time you do it, you can do something differently. When clients do ask me for a book or another resource, I usually will ask, what are you specifically trying to learn? What gap are you trying to fill? Is it knowledge? Is it skill? Is it a confidence gap? Does it have something to do with experience? Are you wanting to hear stories with other experience? Or is there something perhaps that you know you need to do that you might be avoiding by trying to get more information? Because none of those are the same thing. If it's a knowledge gap, yes, let's go learn. Let's look at something very specific. If it's a skill gap, you need practice, not necessarily more knowledge. If it's a confidence gap, you need more evidence. And usually that evidence is looking back on what you've done before. The knowledge is already there. If we look at examples of you overcoming something in the past, that you can start building your confidence on that. If it's an experience gap, then you need more reps. And if it's an avoidance gap, another book is just going to become a really sophisticated delay tactic. You might learn some really cool things and you might have some aha moments, but often it gets in the way of delaying. And, you can highlight and you can take notes, but still it might be delaying. And it's funny because my friends will make fun of me because I will research something to the hilt. But the difference when I know I'm using it to avoid and when I'm using it to actually help me with the decision is whether or not I've made the decision. If I've already made the decision and I say, okay, I need a platform that's going to fill this gap in my business for this specific process, then I will go and seek knowledge and look up what I'm looking for. Or, for example, probably my latest one was I bought a new camera. I'm picking up the hobby of photography, and I wanted a nice camera bag for traveling. But I had already decided that I was going to get a camera bag. I had already thought about what I needed, what I wanted it to look like. And so therefore I went on a binge looking for a specific bag. I think I actually found it. I haven't bought it yet. But the other times is when I haven't made a decision and I'm just going out there going, okay, I wonder what I might need to learn today, or I wonder what I might come across. And that's how I know when I am stalling because there's something else that I probably should be doing. Now, I'm not against learning for the sake of learning. I read a lot, fiction, nonfiction, articles, random things that send me down little rabbit holes. There is a place for just in case learning. That kind of learning, it expands you, it gives you a language, maybe it helps you with pattern recognition. For me, it helps me to connect dots that I might need to connect later. But when you're in the middle of something important, or when there's a decision that needs to be made, a conversation or strategy that you want to build, you have a move to make. And that's where you want to be honest with yourself and answering the question, am I learning because this is the next right step? Or am I learning because action feels too exposed? And as I said, sometimes I'll catch myself doing this and I have to think about it. So sometimes research is just research, but sometimes that's just me leaving my own authority at the door and then looking for answers somewhere else. So when we're wanting to step away from that discomfort of trusting what you already know, that's where you want to step in and go, okay, let me rethink this. Let me give you a few examples. And these are examples that I've had. A leader might read some books on delegation and still not delegate. Often I'll have leaders come in and we talk about delegation. We'll ask why they haven't delegated. What do they know about delegation? What do they understand about delegation? They know the answers. Because the issue isn't that they don't understand delegation. The issue is they don't trust the person or themselves. They don't want to be seen a certain way, or they're still attached to having to be the one that knows everything and does everything. Now, at that point, another delegation article or book or podcast is not going to solve the real issue. The root is not, what does it mean to delegate? The next move is not more information. The root is, let me deal with what I'm running away from. If it's a trust issue, let's talk about that. So the next move is to hand something over. Pick a task, pick a project, give it over to someone, clearly define the outcome, and let that person do it. And by the way, let them do it differently than you would. And guess what? You're going to survive the discomfort of not controlling every step. You're going to make it. You might not like it, but you're going to make it. Then you get to learn a lot of things. You get to learn about yourself, what worked, what didn't work. And I've had some surprising answers when leaders have gone to do something like this. The most recent one, the leader came back to our next session and I said, well, how was that? How did that feel? And they looked and they said, it was very freeing. And they said it as though they weren't expecting to feel that way because, yeah, they're taking something off their plate that probably shouldn't be there to begin with, giving it to someone else. And they had a feeling of freedom. Now, not everyone responds that way. Sometimes they go, wow, it was hard, or I had to catch myself from pulling back from checking in and micromanaging the situation. But that's where you can learn about yourself and handle those in between moments. That's where the clarity comes in by taking the next step and then figuring out how you see yourself handling it. Another example that often comes up is someone will come in and say, I need to build my confidence or I need to build my executive presence. Sure, let's do that. The way I think about confidence in many contexts is that it's built on action that you've already taken. And you continue to build that confidence by taking more action. So you speak up once, your voice shakes, you survive. You ask the question, it comes out clunky, it comes out wrong, the world keeps spinning. You make a recommendation, someone disagrees. Oh my goodness, that's very uncomfortable. But you know what? You learn how to handle that too. These are the areas that we're avoiding, but there's a lot of knowledge in those moments when you do it. That's how knowledge becomes embodied with your experience. Not because you read about executive presence. It's because you've practiced presence when your nervous system wanted you to go hide in a corner and disappear and not talk to anyone. Another example, this is one, I'll use this one for entrepreneurs, consultants, creators, coaches, myself included, small business owners. Sometimes we might want to research because we're being thoughtful, but that research is getting in the way of a decision to make things very real. We can go look at other work that's out there, looking at other offers, trying to figure out from someone else to tell us what the pricing should be, download other templates, watch webinars about how to do webinars. That's what I'm stuck in right now, to be honest with you. The next version of what I'm going to be rolling out later this year and early next year, I know that part of my strategy is going to do some lives and do some webinars. Well, I'm nervous about that. And I can already feel myself not wanting to step into it. I can already feel myself wanting to go look at other webinars and look at other people and places where I can learn about how to do webinars rather than just turning it on, doing it, and learning from what I do. But eventually, I'll have to do it. So the question for you is not so much what else do I need to know? It really is about what do I already know that I'm not applying? Before you go seeking out new knowledge, take a moment and think about what do I already know about this topic? Am I using the knowledge that I already have? Because if I do that first, then it will open up for me to help me understand what gaps I still have and where I need to then spend my time being very specific and intentional about the next level of learning. Are you hoping for more information? Are you confused? Are you just trying to prepare for something or are you trying to postpone something? A better question is, what is one small thing that I can do based on the knowledge that I already have? What if you already trusted that you had the knowledge that you needed to begin with? What would you actually do? So as you think about knowledge as being power, instead think about it as knowledge is potential power. And place the power in your practice, in your doing. Application is power. Your being discerning is power. You being courageous is power. And wisdom is what happens when that knowledge has been tested by your experience. Then you can speak on things based on not just your book knowledge, but also your experience with it. And there is a big difference. The way you talk about things that you've experienced and the knowledge that you've gained through that experience and the way you talk about something that you've learned from a book or from a resource is very different. Test me on that. At some point, though, you do have to close the book and actually live the lesson because that is where the power lies. Don't allow yourself to hold yourself back by thinking that you don't know enough because I promise you, you know more than you think. And it's just a matter of putting it out there and allowing yourself to see it so that you can trust yourself with the next move. All right, I'll see you next time. Hey, if something in this episode resonated, I want you to know you don't have to navigate it alone. This is the work we do inside the Leadership Lab, building capacity, strengthening decision-making, and learning how to lead with intention through change. If you're curious about working together, you'll find more information in the show notes. I'm glad you were here. I'll see you next time.